Hello and welcome to the Manga Bums podcast. This week we'll be discussing the differences and similarities between the oft-compared Kaiji and Squid Game and the socio-economic themes that are within. Strap yourselves in, this'll be good. All right. Hello, everybody. And hello to you, Rinshan. How you doing?
Yeah, hey, it's great to be back. What's up, people?
That might be the most cringe opening I've ever given, but I don't know. I just don't really know what to say because I didn't want to do the disclaimer again because nobody freaking liked that. So I just wasn't sure what to
Yeah,
say. So I was just like, we're gonna be doing a podcast about whatever.
it's all fine. It's
Yep.
all fine. We already improved. Now we have like a decent
Yes, we have a freaking
background.
actual overlay
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So it's gonna get better. Just don't worry about it.
Okay.
So
So we were gonna talk about Kaiji this week, and there's a lot to talk about in Kaiji, right? There's so much to talk about because it's such a long series. So I was just thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool to like compare it and contrast it to something else that's also very similar, but and also very popular at the same time? And what's more popular than Squid Game right now? It's the most viewed show on Netflix, and it was actually inspired by Kaiji and Liar Game and a lot of those other types of gambling type manga. So I figured yeah. So I just asked Rinshan if he would be willing uh, to watch the show, and so we could give our opinions on it. And he just watched the whole thing. And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what did you
So
think? What first impressions? What was your opinion on it?
yeah. So some background. Of course, I know about Squid Game. It's all over the internet. Everybody's crazy about it. But I didn't watch it until you like nudged me and said like, "Hey, why don't you watch it?" And then we compared to Kaiji, and of course I also saw all of the comparisons. Like it's all over the fucking internet. Like everybody's comparing
Yeah,
Squid Game with Kaiji, and I was just like, you know what? I just don't have. I'm not in the mood to watch a Korean uh, show like 9 episodes right now. So I was ignoring it most of the time. But actually, yesterday I binge watched it. I watched it, and we can talk about it today. My opinions are fresh about it, but I suggest we talk first about Kaiji. Establish like some Kaiji opinions and stuff, and then we will throw in Squid Game.
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, really, everybody on the internet is talking about Squid Game. So yeah, I feel like if we're gonna bring anything new to the table, it's gonna be that we know so much about Kaiji that we can kind of like draw like conclusions and comparisons based on what we know about Kaiji. So yeah, this is gonna be like the first part of a multi-week digestion of the Kaiji series, and just I figured it would be good to start out this way because one, like, it the similarities are there. It's they're not completely different series. They have very similar themes. And two, there's just so much to talk about Kaiji. It's just a gigantic hit pop series that's like pretty much everybody in Japan knows at least a little bit about. Not so much outside of Japan, but there's a
Yeah,
lot to go through. So
yeah, Kaiji's a fucking beast. We will definitely need a few more episodes to talk about Kaiji. But before like what I want to say before we like get into Squid Game, I would just like to recap the first part of Kaiji and how you experienced it, what you thought about it. Then I'll jump in, and after that we'll bring in Squid Game.
right. Oh, and I should clarify, there are going to be unabashed spoilers for Squid Game and Kaiji Part 1 in this episode. So, I would say like even if you get spoiled, it's still worth watching both of the series. They are a pretty decent series. So, yeah, but I just should mention that we are going to be talking about the endings and everything before in this episode. So, yeah. So as far as like recapping, I've I assume that like there's just no point in like just telling people like what happens in Kaiji because everybody knows what happens in Kaiji Part One. It's like, I guess what's more valuable is talking about what really spoke to us about Kaiji in particular. Um,
Definitely, because in the last episode you said the reason you got into Fukumoto Crazy was Kaiji.
right.
Unlike me, I'm like the black sheep. I got through Akagi through it, so I think it would be interesting hearing like what captivated you with Kaiji.
Right. Yeah, that is an interesting question for sure because it's not immediately obvious. One thing I will say about Kaiji is he's kind of, you know, it's he's a different kind of character than Akagi. Akagi is kind of just like this genius that always knows what to do, is very confident. You can tell very clearly like what kind of character he's supposed to be. He's just a stoic badass, and that's all that Akagi
Exactly.
is. With
Yeah.
Kaiji, it's kind of harder to pin down. It's like he kind of has this character that's just he's a good guy. He has a good heart, but at the same time, he understands how the world is. He understands like the dark side of reality. He's been betrayed in his past. It's said about Kaiji that he typically like before he got roped into restricted rock paper scissors, he went through a period where he would just like listen to whatever anybody told him, where he would just he would just go with the flow and just if
Can I
somebody told him
can
to
I
go to
can
school, he
I
would go to school, that type of thing. So he
can I
has that
can I
aspect of
jump?
his character too. Yeah, you need to say something?
Yeah, what you're basically saying is what I'm also like thinking about. Like the difference with Kaiji and other fictional stuff is that Kaiji feels like real. You know,
Yeah.
it's like one of the rare like main characters which you can actually relate to, because most of manga, anime, fictional stuff, it's always this kind of guy with some special ability. Like on the top of my head, let's say Naruto. Okay, you like can relate that he's like a lonely outcast, but he is like a demon fox inside him.
Yeah.
You don't have a demon
Something
fox inside
special
you.
that's about him, yeah.
Yeah, then another show, let's say One Piece. Okay, you like Luffy, but like he ate like devil fruit for the gum gum. You don't have those powers.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you like watch Kaiji, and it's fucking relatable. He's a real human being, and like he's
Yeah.
suffering. He hates society. He hates himself, and
Right.
it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, this
what's
is
so
me. This is me. I can finally relate.
what's so compelling about it is that he's just like kind of an everyman. He's just like just so you like you can put yourself in his shoes and you can relate to what he does. But at the same time, there's something special about Kaiji, just a little bit special. That like he's put into these life or death situations and he cries. He reacts like any normal person would. He like gets betrayed and he cries. He like but he still has this ability, this remarkable ability to like even if he's pushed down to the bottom, he still finds the resolve to get back up and do what it takes to survive, whether that's like outsmarting people, whether that's freaking cutting off his ear, whether that's like just having the pure resolve to just cross that steel beam no matter what it takes, one foot in front of the other, like even though he's scared and crying and just freaks out, he still just has that this remarkable resolve to just do whatever it takes to survive. And that I think is what really attaches people to the character. That and his remarkable humanity as well, because even though he knows rationally in his mind, I'm picturing the moment where he's like on the in the human derby, and like there's a guy in front of him, and everybody, the entire crowd is saying, push him, push him, push him, and people are pushing other people like to his right, and he's just standing there with his hands like ready to push the guy, and he's like, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and then just something stops him, and something that not even he really understands, just his pure humanity just stops him, and tears are leaking down his face, and he puts down his hands and he says, I can't do it. I don't care. I don't care if I lose. I don't care if somebody pushes me off. I can't do this. I can't harm another human being like this. And that, I think, is an example of many of Kaiji's remarkable humanity, of his just like, even though like he's in a pit of like just people that are out to backstab him, out to kill him, out to do whatever horrible things that the human brain can imagine. Kaiji alone, even though he understands this, he still has this like pure heart and this humanity that he just that drives him and just is at the center of everything he does.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I would say that's what's really, really compelling about his character.
Yeah, and for me, it's fascinating because um, most people dislike Fukumoto's art style, drawing style, but the story alone, the character alone of Kaiji makes people like ignore it or like get into it, and it's so massive. It has like 6 movies right now or something.
Sick.
Um, you
Well, are you counting like the Chinese one?
No, but I heard about so many movies, and it's such a big thing in Japan. But not only Japan, like even in the Western anime community, you can hear like everybody who's into anime knows about kaiju. It's so it exploded so hard, it's unbelievable, and that's exactly as you said because of the humanity of the character. Because as you said, Akagi, genius. Okay, it's nice watching it. I like listen to what Akagi says and everything, but he's like a supernatural genius.
Genius,
You
yeah.
can't really actually relate to him, yeah. But Kaiji is somebody who you can see yourself in his situation, like, and you can see yourself being there, and so great.
Yeah, and you can like kind of ask yourself, like, would I do the same thing? Would I have the same either would I have the same humanity that he does, or would I think of the same thing? Would I be willing to do the things that he's doing? And I think that's what's really compelling about Kaiji in specific, because, and I think it is helped by the fact that it focuses solely on one character. That like that is a
Yeah,
difference between Kaiji and Squid Game, is that like
yeah,
Kaiji is,
we're yeah.
yeah, I don't know why, I'm sorry, I didn't want to freaking start the
No,
comparison already, but
we're yeah, I think we're gonna get into that. I just want to say that's one part of why Kaiji exploded so much. The other part is the mind games.
yeah,
The games itself,
yeah,
like the way he like beats the game on a level you could never have like figured out yourself. It's just, but it still makes sense. It's still like all within the realms of possibility, and so I would say Kaiji is 50% the character itself, which most of people can relate to, somebody who is like fucking at the bottom of life, and the other half is the brilliant mind games of Fukumoto um, throughout the series.
yes, yeah, that is something that's you have to like it it kind of like pulls you in a psychological way, like you're not just invested in the character, you're also invested in the game, and like trying to think about like how you would react, how you would survive, and like what like, and like I have to imagine like most viewers are trying to like figure out like what the next twist is going to be, and it's always something that's like kind of like a little bit outside of your imagination, and you're just able to like it just is able to surprise you with how like brilliant it is. at the same
Yeah,
time.
and the best part is Fukumoto takes like very simple games like rock, paper, scissors and turns
Yeah,
them into this like fucking mind game or the Emperor card. It's so simple. The games are so simple, and that's the best part about it. Like game is very simple, but the way you can look at the game, analyze it, think of ways to win is infinite. And
right,
for example, to get into Akagi, you have to know Mahjong. You have to be very good at Mahjong. You have to understand everything for you to understand why it's so good and so great that he won, why it's so impressive.
right.
But in Kaiji, it's the simplest games ever, and everybody can understand why it's so smart the way he turns around the situation.
Yeah, especially in part one. I would say that the games do get gradually more complex as the series goes on, but that initial pull of just rock, paper, scissors, and E-card is also kind of just rock, paper, scissors, but with uh, with a twist.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, that is a good game. It's like a good game that like has like already built into it a kind of like strategic mind sense of like what is the opponent going to pick and like how can I counter that. And I think the fact that he came up with the idea to make it restricted rock paper scissors of all things was really a genius move. And just the fact that he was able to think of that, I think, is really amazing. And just all the different twists that he was able to put into it, like who would have ever thought about like about balance theory and just well it's I guess it's not that hard to imagine coming up with a concept of, but the fact that he was able to lay it out and put it all back to back the way that he did, I think is really impressive. um
And another part of Kaiji, which is great, also is that it's unpredictable. This is like one of the rare stories where you actually don't know if he's gonna win because he loses a lot of the time, and there are consequences. You know,
right.
um, like I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah,
sure
that
like 90% of people at the end of part one were sure that like he would make it out, but
yes, and that
no, he doesn't.
he would like not lose because that's the expectation you have, is that
Yeah.
the hero is always going to win. You always expect that the hero is going to win just in anything. In just you expect them to have plot armor, but the subversion of that at the end, where he actually does lose his fingers, is shocking to a lot of people, and I think it also kind of sets up a tone where like even though like for the rest of well, I shouldn't say anything about the rest of Kaiji right now, but it sets up this
Yeah,
expectation of like,
we're gonna talk about
yeah,
this later. Yeah.
right. But it's set in any case at the end of part one. You're set up with the expectation of like, wow, Kaiji might not always win. He might there might be a point later on where he you know winds up losing, and that drives the tension, drives the excitement in the viewers' minds of like, you know, is he gonna make it out? And it helps with that too.
I
So,
I have I have a little how should I say it? Like a little very short story. I actually managed to convince one of uh, uncomfortable noises. Uh,
mm,
one of my ex-girlfriends to watch
oh
Kaiji.
yeah, I
Uh,
see.
we we watched we watched it together, and she was basically not into manga, not into anime at all. She just watched it because of me. And the point she jumped out of the bed and was like, "What the fuck is going on?" is when he was betrayed at the ship.
Right
Uh,
by Ando.
Espoir,
Yeah,
when like watching this normal person, like this normie, jumping out and in shock, like how can they betray him and stuff, and that's another part which is fucking great. Nobody see that, nobody saw that coming. Come on, I don't think you
right.
saw it coming.
I would say the reason that nobody saw it coming, though, to be completely fair, is it kind of just seems so inhuman, right? It seems so inhuman for like here's Kaiji, who is literally freaking like just brought these two like know nothings along with him, Furuhata and Ando, and just dragged them along with him as he freaking like wins time and time again for them, and just freaking like just does thing after thing to freaking just get them as many stars as possible just because he wants to have a team. And that's literally the only reason. Like he comes up with everything. He's the genius mastermind, and they're just there to freaking I don't know, just support him with like saying Kaiji-san, Kaiji-san, and that's it. And then he freaking like sacrifices his life for them, and they're like, no, I'm a freaking kill you. And it's just like the inhumanity of it is just so shocking, like because you
But
would think that you would think
it's not like an asshole. It's not like they like he pulled it out of nowhere. Like you can actually see people being like that in real life. Like,
sure, yeah. And
but you
that
just
is
don't
what's
expect
so eye-opening about
you
it
don't
in
expect
one
it.
in some sense.
You the thing is you don't expect it like in a fictional story to happen. Like everybody, at least like in school, in high school, wherever, they had some experience like that where they trusted somebody and they just turned their back on them. We all know that, but to
Right.
see it in a fucking like manga or a story to happen is just like shocking, and I think that's a big reason why so many people are like like pulled into Kaiji.
Sure. It's
Myself
it's
too.
more realistic in some sense. It's more like, it's like showing the dark, ugly side of humanity. And that is something that I have said in the past. I don't think Fukumoto's art is ugly necessarily, but I would say that like he draws his characters kind of uglier in order to show the ugliness of humanity in a sense. That's kind of the way that I describe it, you know. Um
I know what you mean. Like everything is like a lot like the angles. Everything is like sharper. Like it's just more like the art style itself is like hitting you more like. I know
right.
what you mean. I just can't put it into words.
Sure. Yeah, and that's but I will say that like I feel like Kaiji kind of goes overboard on just depicting humanity as overly cruel, and I feel like there's I don't know. It could just be Ando. It could just be Furuhata that are like that. But I want to believe that like most people in that situation would save Kaiji. It is a very good plot twist. It is a very good plot point, and it really catches you off guard and really shows you that this is a different series. This is like not the idealistic like everybody's a good guy, everybody's always you know doing the best thing possible. No, this is showing you like raw humanity. Like people do this and they are capable of this. I just feel like
Yeah. Well, I would
at
say
some sense it's
I
like
know what you mean.
would
I would
someone
say
really do that to someone that has like literally just like they had nothing and then this guy showed up, he freaking like won the game for them, and then they're just like, oh well, fuck you, you know. Like would someone do that?
yeah. I would say the story is just exaggerated. Like stuff like that does happen all the time in real life, but in like smaller like petty stuff, like at work or at school or
Sure.
in your own family, like people turn their back behind all the time. But Kaiji a little bit like exaggerates it, but it still feels like real. Like, yeah, I can see that happening actually. Like, if they're so desperate for money, if they're like in so much debt, I can actually see that side of humanity popping up and doing
Hmm.
that stuff. It's so believable. I can
It
see it.
is. Yeah, and Ando does also explain his reasoning. Like he says that if they save Kaiji there, then basically they're gonna all three of them walk out with a huge amount of debt no matter what they do because Kaiji took the full 10 million yen at the start, which is compounded what 10% every 10 minutes or something crazy. So it has worked up to like a 14 million yen debt by the end of the game. And so Ando was saying like, you know what, he's screwed anyway. Like even if we save him, like there's no way he's gonna have like a massive debt anyway. So what good is it for us to save him right now? Like we should just take the money for ourselves, and that way we'll walk out with 10 million of our own after we sell the stars that we were gonna use to save Kaiji, and then that way at least some of our debts will be cleared. Like it's in that sense, it is a reasonable it makes sense, you know. It's not like he's just being like, "Well, screw you." It's like a very calculated. Like this is the best option for like two out of the three of us, not all of us, but like at least two out of the three of us will make it out of here with money instead of all three of us being saddled with debt for the rest of our life. We'll sacrifice one person in order to save two of us. So
Yeah, and one more point I want to bring up about Kaiji is that um, you have to know the context that's based in Japan, and
yeah.
we are pretty much all like Western people. I personally haven't lived in Japan, but like studying the language and reading their stories, their books and stuff, they're a lot more serious about rules and like you know what I mean. They're like uh, very much like how do I say it? Like um, in Japan, it's like the honor system, like about rules
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And what was I? I was basically trying to say that in Kaiji is based in Japan, and even though the games itself they look like silly to us a little bit, and the betrayals, I can see it like for Japanese people being a lot more like relatable because once you present some rules to Japanese people, they take it very seriously.
Um,
Like I don't know, I don't know if I went off the pants.
no,
Um,
it's I understand. Yeah, it's more like uh, how do I put it? It's like, you know, it's especially true for them because like, you know, they have such a sense of community and sense of like we're all in this together, and so it would be especially outrageous for them. But I feel like that's a common human thing, and it's probably more true in Japan, but I would say that that kind of thought carries through like the rest of the world as well. And I don't think it's necessarily just a Japan only thing, but
oh, no, that's not what I want to say. I just want to say that like in Japan, it's a little bit more relatable because it's a little bit more like on their in their mentality. Um,
sure.
like for example, as an American, you watch Kaiji and you see like Endo coming up with here you owe so much money because you co-signed. Like an American would be like, "Fuck off," you know, like go fuck yourself.
Mm.
But in Japan, if you present them a paper, it's like, "Oh my God, it's written in paper. I can't say anything against it."
Oh,
That's
I
what I
see.
try.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, he could just be trying to trick you, but that thought never even crosses Kaiji's mind because he's, you know, he's presented with with such a with such an official looking document that just shows like,
Yeah,
and I guess I
that's what I want.
yeah, and but I mean at the same time, like he did co-sign Furuhata's loan, and he knows that, you know, and it's like it's pretty obvious that Endo is being legitimate and it's not like some kind of trick or trap. Um,
Okay, I'm because I feel uncomfortable talking about it. I'm just gonna wrap it up like this. Like, if Kaiji happened in America and somebody came up to his door and said, "Here's the paper you co-signed like a few years ago for this debt, you know, like collateral damage, the debt defaults on you," I can see an American just being like, "Get the fuck out of my property," and pulling out
Probably,
a gun.
yeah. Yeah, because
Uh,
because it is
why
kind of in the American culture to like, kind of just doubt things that other people are saying like with and like and kind of like, be more argumentative at the same time. Like that
yeah,
I can definitely
while
see
in
that happening for sure.
that's my whole point. Well, in Japanese culture, it's like, hey, here's this paper, you signed it, remember? And he's like, oh fuck, I'm fucked. Like he's not even like trying to resist. Like, yeah, I'm fucked.
Yeah,
That's all.
it would be the same at the end of the day, though, because the loan that Endo is presenting to him is legitimate. So even if Kaiji were to be like, "Oh, fuck off, screw you," then Endo would just come back with freaking a bunch of goons and freaking like take him off to the S4 by force or something. So I mean, in the end, it would be the same thing.
Yeah. So should we get into the or should we talk about Kaiji a little bit more? Or should we just jump into Squid
Um,
Game?
okay. How about this? Why don't we why don't we talk about like what we noticed about Kaiji that's a little bit different. I guess, yeah. Why don't we just go into Squid Game? But at the same time, let's keep it like kind of half and half. Let's be like, okay, so this is what was good about Kaiji, and this is what was different in Squid Game, that kind of thing. And I guess I'll start it off by saying, like, I will say that one thing that Kaiji definitely has the leg up in. Like, Squid Game is not a bad show by any means. Don't get me wrong. But the one thing that Kaiji, well, not the one thing. There's a number of things, but one of the things that Kaiji has a leg up in is the fact that we see the other side of the story, and by that I mean, in Squid Game, it's kind of like we're all we see is like the freaking competitors, and we get glimpses behind the scenes every once in a while, but the bad guys who are setting up the game are never portrayed as anything more than just like rich assholes who just want to see people die. In Kaiji, we meet face to face with the person that is putting them through all of this. Kaiji meets Tonegawa. He meets Hyodo. He talks with them, and he gets to understand their mentality. Hyodo's mentality of like, well, I am a king, and a king can only be a king if other people want to be the king, and so they will give him money in order to in the hope that they might become king one day, but that will never happen. And so the king just gets more and more wealthy. And that's Hyodo's mindset. And then Tonegawa's mindset is like, um, you know what? Money is straight up worth more than life. That's like a very powerful message that, like, I think resonates with a lot of people, and is kind of true about society. Is Tonegawa's statement that money is worth more than life, and like because you work your whole life away under the suppression of money, like you're basically living your life for money, and without money you wouldn't be alive, and so money is worth more than life, and he definitely has a point there. It's just that the way that he's enacting it in the series is kind of twisted, but you do in Kaiji, you definitely do see the other side of the story. You definitely see what the villains are thinking. You hear what the villains are thinking, and you understand why they are the way they are. Whereas in Squid Game, it's just kind of like, they're assholes. So,
Yeah. All right. We mentioned Squid Game now. I'm to be a little bit like a smart asshole right now. I'm sorry if I sound like very like like an asshole in general. I'm just gonna say, first big difference and context you have to realize: Squid Game made in Korea, South
sure.
Korea, Kaiji made in Japan. And to understand everything about a story, you have to know the background. For example, in Kaiji, the like the Tay group, the mafia or the yakuza in Japan is very well known, and that's because their history is kind of their whole history is built like that. If somebody doesn't know the history of Japan, it's basically uh, there was always a shogun for the last like 5, 6 centuries. So in Japan, it was always like there was like this guy in the background from the shadows ruling everything, even though there was like an emperor in name, like he was the emperor, but behind the emperor there was always like a shogun ruling the whole country. And in their mentality, they're used to having like the official stuff and then knowing subconsciously or consciously that somebody in the background is actually doing the stuff and ruling. And that's why in Kaiji you can believe that the TI group is so powerful and that
Hmm.
Kyoto is so powerful because that's their history. There's always somebody in the background ruling over them.
Okay,
Um,
I didn't quite. Yeah, I didn't even know that perspective, really. Um, that is kind of interesting for sure. Um, that
yeah,
probably is why
well,
there's such a huge organization and why the organizers in Squid Game are backed by a different country altogether. Because yeah, you're right. Because like in South
exactly,
Korea,
exactly,
it would be
exactly.
less
Yeah,
believable for such a large organization such as TAI to exist within their country. It would be
yes,
more believable
yes,
for
that's what I meant. Yeah,
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 for a large organization from America, which is what it is, to like be organizing the entire thing like for their own personal pleasure. So yeah, that is genuinely like a major difference. And that is something that I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit too, is the fact that I feel like Squid Game is kind of like more of a commentary on like the socio-economic state of South Korea as it is. And the fact that there are so many people in such severe debt, I feel, is kind of the fault of America in a certain way. Because um, if you look back to, like, in case you didn't know, the reason that Korea is split into North Korea and South Korea is because of the Korean War and the fact that Russia backed North Korea and America backed South Korea. And so after the war, North Korea became communist and South Korea became democratic because of the people that were backing them. And it's kind of so it is kind of almost America's fault that South Korea is the way it is because they kind of just gave them this democratic system. They kind of were just like, all right, you're going to live like this. You're going to, try and prove yourself in the, you're going to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and kind of like prove yourself on the world stage. And, well, good luck with that. See ya. And we just kind of, let them do it. I mean, it definitely worked better for them than North Korea. There's no doubt about that. But, um, at the same time, I do
well,
understand the sentiment of like, we are kind of in this situation, um, and like we're like America is watching us from afar and just kind of being like, you know,
yeah, well,
they're
one,
doing what they're
one,
doing and we're doing what we're doing and they're not really doing anything to help.
yeah, okay. Okay, so since we started comparing Kaiji and Squid Game, the only reason we actually compare Kaiji and Squid Game is because the internet is comparing them a lot.
Right.
And Squid Game has a lot of like references and similarities to Kaiji, but the truth is they're actually completely different shows. That it just they're not even like they're not similar at all. Like
I would say
Kaiji
that
is
they're
a
similar in some sense. That's something
well,
that
can
we
I like if I have to like come up with a metaphor right now, it would be um, let's say Super Mario. Like you have Super Mario, like you have the platformer games, right? Like the platforming Super Mario games,
okay.
famous everything, and then you have like Super Mario RPG.
Mm.
Um, both are like about Super Mario, and all the characters are the same. Everything is similar. Everything seems to be same on the surface, but the basics, like the mechanics of everything in Super Mario, it's like a platformer game. Super Mario RPG is, as the name says, an RPG. So even though like Kaiji and Squid Game appear similar, they're like completely different from a um, storytelling perspective and from the core itself. They're they're completely different, honestly. They just
Sure,
appear to
I
be
would
similar.
say yeah, they are different like overall, but I would say that they share very similar themes. They share very similar main characters. Um, and Squid Game isn't about the main character. Is one big difference. Squid Game. One thing that Squid Game does really well is that it incorporates a lot of different characters that all have very different personalities, and you understand all their backstories and you sympathize with all their backstories. And like I was telling Rinshan before we started, when I watched episode 2 of Squid Game, I was like, "Holy crap, this is really good! If it keeps up with this and it incorporates some like really great mind games and stuff, I think this might be better than Kaiji." Now, I wound up not thinking that, but I will say that it had that aspect to it, that amazing like character building, and just getting to know all the characters and understanding them and all that stuff. But anyway, getting back to how uh, you're right. They are very different series. Like Kaiji is more about like
Well,
one man's
well,
struggles for survival, and Squid Game is more about just like you throw 400 people into a pit, one person comes out alive. It's more of a battle royale slash Hunger Games meets Kaiji meets freaking Liar Game. It's a mishmash of all sorts of different things. But at the same time, I would say that Kaiji is kind of like an inspiration, and like the themes of the two series are similar in a lot of ways.
yeah. Well, I wanted to say the biggest difference is Squid Game is a show made by a studio, made by
Yeah,
a lot of people.
right.
Uh,
Oh, oh,
Basically, whoever came up with Squid Game, he probably read Kaiji and was like, "Yeah, that's cool." And they wanted to put their inspiration from Kaiji into a Korean kind of social commentary kind of stuff, whatever. But there's a big difference. Like Kaiji is a character study about Kaiji. It's all about Kaiji until
yeah,
we get to the Asian trio. But until then, it's just Kaiji
yeah,
and his experiences with all kinds of different people. While Squid Game is more like a TV kind of like it's definitely different from most of TV shows I liked. I just want to say I liked Squid Game. It's a good show. I respect it a lot. But at the end, it's still like a TV drama. And
right.
for example, one more example. Fukumoto had the power to say, you know what, in my manga, there's not gonna be any female characters. I don't give a shit. That's just how it is.
Sure.
And I imagine if the creator or the mind behind a Squid Game came up to the studio and said like, "I want to make this show all about guys," they would go like, "No, no, no. We
No,
have to
of
like,
course not.
yeah, we have
Got
to
to
have like
rope
this
in
kind
the
of
female demographic.
yeah, we have to appeal to that kind of demographic, to that kind of demographic. We have to appeal to the immigrants. We have to appeal to those kind of people. No, no, we have to have them all. And even though I respect Squid Game like a thousand times more than the usual stuff you see on Netflix, I can still feel that kind of like you just feel it kind of like
That corporatism.
appealing to people. Yeah, exactly. Like, and you can feel it all the way. While Kaiji is just like one man himself writing, drawing it, and saying, "This is what it is," and that's my idea.
Yeah,
Nobody.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it is very much a corporate kind of effort in Squid Game, whereas Kaiji is more raw, and it's focused on one
Yeah,
guy, and it's it's all like Fukumoto just did what he wanted with it, and it turned out the way it did, and it's beautiful because of that. Whereas I would say Squid Game is kind of more watered down. It's more and another thing is that I think they went too far out of their way to make all of the games like very, very, very easy to understand. Like far too easy to like Kaiji made it like easy to understand, and still had a layer of complexity to all the games, and left room for mind games and all. I can't think of a single mind. Well, I guess there was a betrayal in Squid Game, but like as far as like actual mind games go, were there any
Yeah,
in Squid
yeah,
Game?
yeah. That was something I was thinking about as I was watching the show. It's not really like mind games, and that's exactly the same thing we talked about, like this corporate stuff, the studios. They're like, no, let's not make it complicated, you know. Let's make it relatable. Um, and in the end, the only mind game which I really liked was with the marbles.
Yeah, that's
I
like
think
the
it
only
was the
one there
fourth
was.
game. Yeah. Otherwise, it was more physical. It was more like, oh, I'm gonna like go into the air duct. I'm gonna like spy.
Yeah, there
I
was a
mean,
lot of behind the scenes like espionage stuff, which I feel like kind of took center stage for a lot of the series. Like it became less about the games and more about like what are they doing? Like what's the secret cop doing to try and shut this game down? That was kind of like the like what was really pulling your attention after a certain point. Which
it broke my immersion because you remember the cop who like followed them and got into the whole system. He was like pretending to be one of those pink people with the
pink people.
yeah,
yeah,
like
like
the
what do you
costume.
call them? Guards or something? Yeah, the guys with like shapes on their
Yeah,
faces, shapes on their masks.
yeah, but it broke my immersion because if it really was such a powerful company, like such a company, like such a powerful organization that they can like take a whole boat to bring people to a whole island, and they have so much power and everything, they can kill people without any consequences, and they don't notice that some fucking cop was under their car and
I know.
it, it, it just broke my immersion. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, Kaiji, I never like my immersion was never broken because everything that happens made sense in my mind. But while I was watching Squid Game, it was like, this doesn't really make sense, but okay, I will give it a
yeah.
pass, and that's pretty much. Even though I enjoyed it, as I said, I'm not saying
Right,
it's a
of
bad
course.
show.
No,
I
it's
was just like
it's
giving.
very engaging, very enjoyable. It's just there's not as much to sink your teeth into and like to really like think about and unravel like after you've watched it. Like while you're watching it, you're like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens next. But like after you're done, like there are things that you can think about, like the ending, for example. Um I don't know if we even want to talk about that. I did like write this entire Reddit blog post that like maybe 15 people saw uh, about like my interpretation of the ending. But for right now, we're talking about um what really like what drew us to the show, and as far as like stuff that like you're gonna look back on and you're gonna be like, oh wow, yeah, that was really smart what he did there, or like, wow, okay, I never really thought about that. That's really eye opening. They're very few and
Okay,
far between in Squid Game. They're very few and far
it's
between.
it's time to give some kudos to Squid Game because there are some moments which aren't there in Kaiji and which I appreciated a lot. As I said, the marble game, um, it was building up to it, and even though, like, God, I don't want to say, like, it was predictable. As soon as I heard like make players of two, I was already like, yeah, they're gonna have to fight
Oh, yeah.
against each
Oh,
other.
okay. You were there from that moment. Okay.
I already saw it and I was like, yeah, okay, but let's see where it goes. But it still managed to like to see like the different types of characters and how they um look at the game. And for example, you have like the as I told you before, I don't remember any of their names because they're Korean.
Right.
But you had like this business guy, genius guy, and the uh, Pakistan guy, and they were able to be like he was nice to him, he was helping him out, and then there you can see like some friendship, and then that kind of betrayal, that was hitting hard. And then the old
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that kind of almost hits as hard as um the betrayal in Kaiji almost. When Song Wudong, I think was his name, betrays Abdul Ali.
Yeah. Also, like what I appreciate about Squid Game is that you in that one game you see all of what was built up and all of it like falling apart during this game of marbles. That's what I appreciate a lot, and it hit me, and I was like, this is the great thing about this story, and that couldn't happen in Kaiji, because in Kaiji you don't have the kind of like background of other characters, because Kaiji is about Kaiji, of course.
Right, that is true. Yeah, I think that is something that Kaiji works to its strength, though, is the fact that um, because you Kaiji, we know that Kaiji is going to survive, so like the other characters like aren't developed as much, and that's kind of I feel almost on purpose because like we don't get to know them as well as enough because they're not going to be in the picture very long, except like Ishida and Sahara, and that's more like to pull at your heartstrings, kind of. Um, but yeah, definitely. Definitely that is one of the strengths of Squid Game that they turn to their advantage is like the drama that happens because we know that there's such we know so much about the characters that it can lead way for that kind of drama, which is good.
And
Um,
that's now I'll just jump into it when I said that they're like completely different shows, because um Squid Game, like if you really look at it, the main character isn't that much involved at all. Like after the first episode, you know what I mean? Like first episode, second episode, and then he's just like the guy with a good heart, the naive, innocent guy with a good heart who somehow makes it, who forgives people, and he's the hero and whatever.
right.
While Kaiji is actually just a character study. It's just so focused on the mental state of the main character and the main character only, and his progress and his realization of the world. And that's why I can't really compare them. Um, I can't say Squid Game is worse than Kaiji. I can't say Kaiji is worse than Squid Game, because for me, it's like two completely different things.
Yeah, they were trying for very different appeals and
Why
different.
people why people compare it to Kaiji is because of the green jumpsuit, because of the bridge scene, because of the guy like at the bottom of his life in debt, getting a chance through a game to pay it off. I get it. Yeah, like of course um, you jump to the like your instinct. You say like yeah, they're similar, but if you break it down, just so different. Like
I would say, yeah, I would say
um,
that Kaiji was one of the inspirations, and I'm not just saying that. That is something that's on his Wikipedia page. I have his name pulled up. Oh, I used to. It was like Hyung Si Duk or something like that. The creator. He his inspiration for Squid Game was because he was he was in a spot similar to Shung Gi-hoon, the main character, where like he was kind of like down on his luck and he was like working job to job just trying to get by, and he found relatability in series like Kaiji, like Liar Game, like other series like that that deal with trying to kind of like outsmart people and trying to like rise your way up to the top. And I feel that like that is almost kind of a reflection of society in a way, in a very interesting and engaging way, is just kind of like showing that like really when you are at that level, when you are just struggling to get by, it is almost uh kind of like a survival game in a sense where you're just trying to do what you can to get by, get what you can from here, from there, from you know just just that overall mindset of like I need to do what it takes to survive, and kind of just putting that in a bubble and micro and I don't. I was about
Microcosm. Yeah,
microcosm.
yeah,
Yeah, putting it in a microcosm, I guess.
yeah, but that's definitely where they're similar. Definitely. Uh, but the way I personally like, because as I said, I didn't watch Squid Game for my own evolution. I didn't was like, oh, I want to watch a show. I just watch it for this podcast,
Right.
um, and I immediately noticed at the beginning, like, you can't really compare like Kaiji and the main character of Squid Game, because
Oh, you can't, huh?
you can't compare them. You can't compare them honestly, because the main character of Squid Game has a daughter, and
Hmm.
he's living with his mother, and he cares about his mother who is sick and about to lose her feet, and he cares about his daughter, which is disappointed with him. So for the main character of Squid Game, he has something in life. While Kaiji is from the beginning like just this fucking loser without anything and anybody,
Yeah,
you know? And that's the biggest difference.
it's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see that.
Like Kaiji is not Kaiji's like as the title says. Kaiji is the ultimate survivor. The point of the whole show is him trying to survive,
Yeah,
just to survive. While the main character of, and actually every character of Squid Game is trying to win the money for, like, not every, but most of them, like the main characters are like trying to get money for somebody else.
right. Yeah, it's a selfless kind of motivation. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of driving all of them. Whereas, yeah, Kaiji is just doing what he can. There's almost a sense with Kaiji that he wants to be in these games because, like, I rewatched a little bit of the anime and during episode 10 it's kind of almost implied that like he's just kind of sitting there like trying to convince himself that everything's going to be okay, but deep down he's also like I can't wait for the next game to start, you know. It there like because after Endo presents him with the opportunity to join Brave Men Road, like the narrator says, like his thoughts weren't like thoughts of like should I do this? Should I take this opportunity? It was more like I'm gonna do better this time. I'm gonna do better this time. I'm not gonna like make the same mistakes again. As if he's already decided. Like I really want to do this. I'm gonna do this. So it's kind of like Kaiji is almost there's a little bit of a kind of like I don't want to say sickness, but a kind of like this like just drive that like he would rather put himself in these kinds of life or death situations than work the freaking like 9 to 5 job that he's working right now at his freaking gas station, or where he hates everybody that he's around and stuff. Um, there's that aspect to Kaiji too. Whereas like all the characters in Squid Game, you get the sense that they would rather not do this, but they kind of have to because of their situations, which is a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
a lot more relatable. But it's also you also kind of like feel like compelled to watch Kaiji because he is so enthusiastic about what he's doing, and it's very rare that we see Kaiji like actually resent like the people that are doing this to him. It's more like, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? I never should have done this. Oh, he never has these thoughts of like, oh, well, I guess that's not true. Like once he meets Tonegawa and Hyodo and like actually learns about them, then he starts to be like, how can you do this, you inhuman. And you know what? That's not even true as a whole. Because, like, yeah, at the end of Restricted Rock, Paper, Scissors, he does kind of have, like, a mental breakdown where he freaking just mouths off against the people that are watching them from afar, enjoying all of this. So, there's aspects of that in his character, too. But I feel like there's more of just, I want to put my life on the line in Kaiji than in
Well,
anybody in
that's
Squid
his
Game.
character flaw, but what you have been talking about right now, that's what I meant when I said Squid Game and Kaiji appear to be like similar on the surface, but the core is very different with my stupid. metaphor about Super Mario platformer and RPG.
It's
That's what
like,
I
yeah,
meant.
it
Like
is kind of
it,
comparing apples to oranges in some sense. I understand that.
like it appears to be very similar. Like it appears, but if you break it down, it's very different. Um, if I didn't go into Squid Game, knowing that I'm gonna talk about it, if I just went into it like with a fresh mind, I maybe wouldn't have been so like critical about it. I wouldn't have like criticized it so much. But with the knowledge that it's compared with Kaiji so much, everything stood out to me. Like everything stood out to me. Every episode, I was like, okay, this is so different. Second episode, it's different. It's different. He has a daughter. It's already different. Mother is
Yeah.
caring about him. It's different. It's Korea.
Yeah,
It's different.
I do feel like if you had just watched it kind of blindly, you might have been more like noticing the similarities. But because I specifically asked you if you wanted to watch it in preparation to compare it to Kaiji, I'm sure that that kind of like put in your mind like, oh, like so this is going to be exactly like Kaiji, and then you watch it and you're like, whoa, it's not, you know. And I can understand like that that's how
Same
that
time, I'm
happened.
like not shitting on the show. I'm not shitting on the show. Just to make it clear, like I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Like I binge watched it. I liked it a lot. I just, I'm just like, I don't like it being compared to Kaiji.
Sure.
That's
One thing I
that's
will
what I don't.
say that I feel like Squid Game kind of went overboard with the gore and the it just the sure like viciousness of it all. It like I I will be honest with you, I kind of felt sick to my stomach when I finished the series. Like I was just so tired of it, and I was just like just watching people just like viciously kill each other just over and over. It just made me really sick. And I feel like that's something that is different about Kaiji. It's not like it's not like the stakes are any less high, but at the same time it's just kind of like they don't really revel in the inhumanity of what's going on in Kaiji. People
Yeah,
fall off the bridge,
well,
we never see him again, and it's not like we cut literally in Squid Game, like during the exact same type of sequence where they're walking on the glass panels. We cut to freaking see a girl with her head smashed open and her brains leaking out, and it's just like, oh, why do I need to see that? Whereas in
yeah.
it
Sonic, we already mentioned it. It's the studios. It's like add some
right,
shock value. Add
yes,
some shock
I'm
value.
sure.
Like make it as shocking as possible. Like the teenagers, the young people will like the kind of like shock value.
Yeah.
While in like there's like the best comparison ever. Like thank you for like I just realized it. The best comparison ever. When Kaiji is walking on electrical beam, you know the name of the game.
Brave Men
It's
Road, yeah.
Rayman Road, and there's this guy, uh, the biggest loser who owes a lot of money and who just cares about his family. So he's basically a very Squid Game character, and he
Oh,
gives him this. Yeah, you of
yeah,
course you
Ishida.
remember.
Yeah, Ishida. You're talking about Ishida.
Yeah, yeah. So he gives him this paper and says like, please give money to my sister and mother. I fucked up. I brought them to despair with my fucking life. And Kaiji accepts, and he starts walking forward. And for a moment, he turns back, and it's just one shot. Kaiji turns back, and there's nobody there.
Right. Yeah, and that's a
And then,
chilling moment, a very chilling moment
why-
where he
yeah,
realizes what
and
happened.
if Squid Game did that same scene, it would be Ishida shouting, "Oh!" and then showing him like falling, and then showing his like fucking body smashed up, and like, "Oh, look, he's dead." Oh,
Yeah,
you
they
know?
they want to show you every like minute detail of the
Yeah.
horror. Well, yeah, very much so. Yeah, Squid Game is definitely more shock. It's more shock horror, like just showing you like like Goose said, it's like a Saw type of appeal. It's like, look how gory we're being with this. Like, I almost think that if they had a bigger budget, they would have been more gory, instead of just having people get shot. I think they would have gone a step further. Um, but yeah, in Kaiji, it's very much
And what,
not about that. It's
sorry,
all
sorry,
about the psychological. Um,
sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say one more thing about this while we're talking about gore. I also really disliked the pink the pink suit people just like
mhm.
pulling out a gun and just like shooting people. Like it's just so. Uh, I
You
mean,
like that,
it's
huh?
entertaining. It's like shock value. Okay, pink guy with mask comes up and like shoots. Okay, yeah, it's fun, but just can't see it happening. Like just it,
It
it's
is it is
so
kind
like
of like out of this world almost. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, it is
and
very
and the
inhumane
and the
and like it's hard to
and
even
the
imagine.
Korean police. The Korean police is so incompetent to not notice that all of these dead people appear at this like 300, 200 dead people just randomly appear and somebody randomly gives them money and that
Yeah,
there's
they
only one
wouldn't connect the
policeman
dots, and
who,
apparently it's been going on for years, literally years and years and years. They have like hundreds of files of all the different Squid Games that have been performed, and it's like, really, nobody's noticed this. It is kind of like the same suspension of disbelief that you have in Saw. Like, oh, Jigsaw can get away with all of this, like freaking putting people in all these traps and stuff, and the police never catch him just because he's just so good. It's the exact same kind of like, oh, okay, we'll just pretend that this makes sense because it's more entertaining. you know.
um, I'm gonna say some very nice things about Squid Game. Um, but before that, I just wanna like lay out some other things which really like bothered me during the show.
Sure.
Um, so like because we're comparing Kaiju with Squid Game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, otherwise I wouldn't bring it up. But if we're comparing Kaiju with Squid Game, Kaiji, I never felt like my immersion never broke as I was watching it, reading it. Like I was always immersed.
Right.
But in Squid Game, it's so obvious. Like this, it has to be like this TV show, Hollywood kind of story where, oh, my brother was behind it all. Oh,
Oh yeah, that
you
was
know,
really good.
it's like, oh my god, it's like a soap opera, like
Oh yeah, and the
stuff
and
like
the
that.
whole yeah, player number one was actually the mastermind the whole time.
Can I
That
say
thing.
something about it? I know most people won't believe me, and I'm not trying to be like this contrary that like this guy who's like, I saw it happening. I swear to God, the first time I saw the old man, my first instinct was he's the mastermind.
Really?
Just I
Really now?
swear, I swear, I'm not kidding. Just because of the way he acted, like it felt
Wow.
a little bit off. And
Okay.
then in the game, in the first game where the doll turns around and shoots everybody who's moving, and he's just like jumping like happily, and I'm like, okay, I'm 90% sure. And during the marbles game, where he like owns the main character and then like pretends to be senile and still like whatever, I'm like, yeah, it's him. It's him. It's definitely him. Like
Right.
I just knew it, and at the last episode, for a long while, I was like, "Holy shit! I'm glad it wasn't him." I was like, "I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'm so happy." But then, then he, then he appears. I'm like, "Fuck! I knew it. I knew it. I was right." Fuck
Okay. It was a real shock to me. I'll tell you that. I did not see that coming. But I just thought he was like kind of like a dementia-ridden old man who was just having fun because like he thought it was just a freaking game. But he did definitely stand out of place among all the other competitors at the same time. So I guess I should have probably pieced it together, but I just didn't.
No, no, no. It's not up to you. It's up to me because I studied a lot of like movie making in the past, and from the beginning, like the shots of the guy and so much attention put to him and his dialogue and everything, like and his smile. Uh, it's not something a normal person would notice. Holy shit! I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm talking like I'm somebody better. I'm not better, but with my like um, kind of script writing, I always look at the background, like why are they writing him like this? Why are they putting so much focus on him? Why is he smiling and stuff like that? And just connected in my brain, like, okay, this is gonna be the plot twist.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but that's me. That's me. I'm not saying they did bad. I'm just saying
No, I
I
mean
saw it
it
coming.
definitely caught a lot of people off guard, I have to imagine, myself included. So it's just yeah, that if I guess if you've engrossed yourself in enough of that in enough movie making and enough like plot twist building, then you can kind of see it coming. Um so
Yeah,
I'm
because in the meta game, if you're making a show, you have to like really decide like how many seconds are you gonna give a character? How are you gonna like what's gonna be the shot of the character like? What is he gonna say? And I was thinking of along those lines the whole show, and the old man just like rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, he is definitely going to be because he's number one. First of all, he's 001
yeah,
for some reason. He plays to be stupid, or he appears to be like demented, stupid, whatever. He has no background story like the other characters. Like you
right.
don't see his past. And I was like, okay, you give so much attention to this character. He's kind of weird. It's gonna be something about him. I knew it like from the start. I was hoping it's not gonna be like that. Like we have in the chat, somebody as me also noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
S- No, I mean it's I just I guess yeah, we should probably talk about like the logistics behind it though. So like the fact that the old man was like uh, uh his name was O Nam. Yeah, that's it. O Nam. The fact that Ilnam was like he put himself into the game, like he was an organizer for years and years, and he put himself into the game. Uh, it just kind of strikes me as like why would you put yourself through that? Almost, it kind of just I don't know. It like as I was watching the end result, I was just kind of like, really? How does that make any sense? And it does make sense. Don't get me wrong, it does make sense. It's just kind of like it it just doesn't seem like it would be something that would happen really. Not that anything
I
in
get the
Squid Game would
point.
ever happen, but
I get the point. And Sonic. This is where we transition to the other difference between Kaiji and Squid Game. It's about Korea, and it's about
oh,
nostalgia. And the old man pretty much represents, and all of the games are children's games.
mm,
And now we're getting into the deep meta of the show of Squid Game and why you can't compare with Kaiji, because Squid Game is in essence a show about South Korea losing its identity to America, and the old man pretty much represents the nostalgia of South Korean people remembering how it was in their childhood when they were still themselves, and nowadays they have to live as a puppet of America. And I think that's the biggest. I haven't watched any single YouTube analysis. I just watched the show yesterday, binge watched it. But while I was like laying in my bed and thinking about it, I was like, this show is about South Korea losing
mm,
identity, and
yeah,
the
it
old
could
man
be.
is the symbol of it. He's
Yeah, he's
longing for those
the older
old
generation that
days for
wishes
America.
he could
Yeah,
go back to when. Yeah, it's deeper than just wanting to go back to his childhood because that's something that everybody has. It's more specifically wishing that South Korea could just because Squid Game itself, the game, is like a Korean only type of game. Like you don't find that game anywhere else in the world. It's like the fact that he centered his game around that Korean specific game kind of shows that like he has kind of a pride of the way things used to be in his country, and he wishes that not only could he go back to his childhood, but also that he could bring Korea back to its childhood at the same time. Yeah, I hadn't really
We
thought
talked
about
about
that,
this
but
a little
that
bit.
definitely
A
does
little
make
bit.
sense.
We talked about this a little bit for the listeners. We talked very little bit about it, but I mentioned like throughout the show you can see like the older Korean people, like the lady selling the food at the street, uh, whose successful son is apparently in America, even though he isn't, saying stuff like, "Oh my God, he's going to America. He's gonna eat trash food, unlike our Korean traditional food and stuff like that." Um, I would say the show is like South Korean identity crisis guised through Kaiji kind of inspiration and
Mm.
liar uh, games, but it's their sadness that they lost their identity. Um,
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't know
It is
anything about South
sad.
Korea. I don't. It's just what I thought when I finished the show. I might
Sure,
be
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. That there definitely is that aspect to it. I would say there's also an aspect of like wishing that there was a better system than capitalism is another aspect of it. Wishing that like there weren't so many poor people with debt that would be willing to put themselves into this kind of situation to be free from their debt, even if there was only like a 1% chance of it, because their lives are just so bad. That kind of problem does exist all over the world, which I think is why Squid Game became such a monster hit, is because that's such a relatable feeling for people all over the world, not just in South Korea, but in any country, any civilized country. There's always people at the bottom that are struggling to get by, while there's people up there like with tons with billions and billions of dollars just doing whatever they want. And it's very
Well,
and if you think about it that
yeah,
way, it's really realistic for the people at the top to just play with the people at the bottom, because why not? Because they have so much power and influence. It almost that kind of sense of that feeling of uh they're so much better off than us that they can just use us as they wish is kind of like it's very realistic almost. It's like not the games themselves, but that sense of like the people at the top are playing with us and they're just like using us for their own amusement. It's a very real sentiment that
yeah,
a lot of people experience in the real world. Um,
yeah. It definitely is, and I just want to give some credit to Squid Game because even though I saw through the like meta story and already predicted a lot of things, um, one thing which is beautiful in the first episode, the main character is betting on horses,
yeah.
like he's like betting
Oh,
on the horse.
oh, I know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
at the ending, it's the same. It's just
Yeah.
super rich people
Yeah.
betting on
Betting on
other
them, and
people,
they're the
which they
horses.
consider
Yeah.
animals. Yeah, and even the main character says at the end, like, "I'm not a horse. I'm a human being."
Right.
And what I would love to see is a sequel where he takes them down.
Right.
Um,
And that's
it's
definitely going to happen.
engaging.
It's such a huge hit
It's
that the author has already said, like, we are going to continue this into season two and maybe even season three.
engaging. I love the show. I love the fucking show. I'm gonna watch the sequel. Thank you for making me watch it. It's great. The only the only thing I dislike is when people compare it to Kaiji. That's
Mm,
my only like thing which I don't like. You
right.
compare to Kaiji. It's just a whole different beast.
And
It's
that's
good,
fine. Yeah.
but it's something different.
Yeah. And I feel like it's been talked to death already on the internet, like, the differences between it. And, um, So I guess since we're just talking about this anyway, and our real Kaiji breakdown is going to be happening next week, why don't we just freaking talk about like the ending of Squid Game? Um,
Okay, so here's my interpretation, my fresh interpretation. I didn't discuss this with anybody. I just saw it yesterday. My interpretation is the old man. Uh, it's suicide. Like he also longs for the old days, of course, like for his childhood, but he also longs for South Korea's identity. But at the same time, he lost he lost the hope in humanity, and his final bet with the main character is, let's bet that nobody's gonna even look or like approach that drunk guy on the cold
yeah,
street, because that's the difference between the main character and this old man dying. The old man has lost all hope for humanity. He doesn't see anything positive. The main character, even though he's into shit and stuff, he still believes in humans, and he sees this woman approaching this drunk guy and asking him if he's all right.
right. And something that a lot of people point out is that the the fact that Song Gi-hoon, the main character, doesn't go down and help the person himself is a real like almost a plot hole because like he's just betting that like someone will go help that man. Like why does number one, like he could win the bet if he went down and he helped the man himself, and number two, even if not, why is he just standing there and not helping this man when he has such a good moral compass, if he does have such a good moral compass? um I would say that if it were a normal character, that would be fine. But Shang Gi Hoon has like been characterized as a character that's very impulsive. Like he has a crippling gambling addiction, and that makes him very impulsive, um, just by nature of his addiction. And so he doesn't really think about the long term. He doesn't really think about like, oh, what's going to be the best for me like a week from now. He thinks is like what's going to be best right now. And so all he saw in that moment, from my interpretation, was just like this man is betting me uh betting me that nobody will help this man, and I want to win this bet, so I'm going to take him up on it because I want to take down the person that did all these horrible things to me. And another thing that you have to understand about Shang Gi-hoon at that time is that he is experiencing very clear PTSD from the Squid Games, like almost as if he went to war, and maybe even worse, because he does nothing for an entire year. He doesn't help anybody. He doesn't take the money. He doesn't do anything. He just sits there wallowing in his memories of the games and wallowing in like just self pity and self loathing and all of this other stuff for all that time. And he just is very traumatized by what he's been through. And so I wouldn't say that he even really has the mental capacity at that moment to think of a better way to win this gamble that the that O Il Nam is putting him through. I would say that it's more that he just he's so filled with rage at this person that has now declared themselves to be the mastermind of the entire game, and he wants to play on his terms and beat him at his own game. um
Well,
I would
I'm
say
gonna
that
jump in.
that's how it is.
Yeah. Well, it's also the same way. It's a nostalgic longing for the old Korea. At the same time, the story is against capitalism. It's anti-capitalism, definitely, because the main character with all of the money, like he the money can't make him happy. His mother is gone. He can't see his daughter. He's a pure guy. He cares about human relationships. So you
Right.
can give him all the money in the world. It won't help him. He wants his family, you know? And that's why he's so broken at the end. Because even though he has so much money, he lost what he cares about.
Yeah, there's just nothing worth
And
it for it. The whole reason that he went into that game in the first place was to save his mother. And, she died while he was doing that. So it's just like, what is the point of any of that? Why did all these people die? Why am I still here? Why am I alive? I feel like, yeah, that's also part of the mental process that he was going through after the games ended.
yeah, it's kind of together with the anti-America, anti-capitalism stuff. It's like together, like you can just feel like a longing for the old days in Korea where they were probably everybody was probably like poor, but nowadays it's all about money, and you see all of these characters which are very relatable go crazy when they see the amount of money, and they lose their mind. And I
They
think
practically turn
we
into
need to talk about,
monsters in pursuit of that money.
yeah, and that's the best segue to get into the rival of the childhood friend.
The right. Oh, you're talking about say Shang. I know who you're talking about. I knew his name.
Business
Song
guy,
Wudong.
child.
I think that's it. Yeah.
He's the he's the childhood friend, and it's like total opposites. The main guy stayed like human, cared about stuff and whatever, while his childhood friend went on the path of capitalism. And you see the difference because he killed mercilessly Ali, and when they were like facing each other off, he was trying to lay down his philosophy to him, like, um, "Look, all of these people died. What do you think they died for? We need the money." And he's like, "Oh, like so cold and so like soulless." Um,
Yeah.
and they face each other off at the end in a childhood game, and I think that's kind of nice. Uh,
It is
and
poetic.
what yeah, and what redeems this business asshole is that even though the main character wanted to like end it and said like let's just give up and just live, he kills himself.
Right. That is. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like he's kind of a. His character is really interesting because he's willing to be cutthroat and backstab, and you understand where that comes from because he was able to uh like lie to his mom saying that like I graduated and I have all this money and I'm in America and I'm sorry I can't see you. And he has that, but so he has that aspect of him that's willing to deceive other people and backstab and do all this, but at the end of the day, he's not a bad guy. He's not like
No, he's
irredeemable.
not.
He
He's
still has this
definitely not.
selflessness and he understands, what, like,
Honestly, he was my favorite character until the end, until the marble game, I would say.
uh
I was
yeah.
rooting for him. I don't know what that says about me personally, but I was like, yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy. And then in the marble game, betraying Ali, I was like, no, that's not my guy anymore. That's too
Right.
much.
Yeah, it kind of shows that there are people like that though. I would say that's there are like people out there, especially in business, especially in a kind of the kind of field that he was in, is that like you kind of have to have that kind of like almost cutthroat backstab, like I'll do anything it takes to get ahead to be a businessman almost, which is really sad, but it's also the state of the world. And I feel like
It's true, yeah.
that's a very strong aspect of Squid Game, is that they had that kind of character that represented the kind of cutthroat businessman that you find like rising up the ranks of the world, um, all over the world. And you put him in a situation like this so you can show that even though he seems like a really nice guy, even though he seems like someone that he gives Ali money for the bus fare home, he's very nice and sociable on the surface, but deep down he still has that capability to throw people under the bus at a moment's notice if it benefits him. And it's sad, but there are people like that. And you can say whatever you want about Squid Game. You can say it's better than Kaiji, worse than Kaiji, better than any series, or worse than any other series. One thing that I think it did do, and the reason that I am somewhat happy that it did get the success that it has, is that it's showcasing these very real world examples of the way that society is and the way that you have to be if you want to rise the ranks of society. And the fact that, like, just kind of putting a spotlight on the problems that we have in society. And I feel like that's doing a lot to make like help people to realize that the system that we have isn't perfect and maybe help them to brainstorm a system that would be better. Um
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just gonna like try to summarize Squid Game. Um, I think it's a very good show. I think it was somewhat predictable. I think it was somewhat trying to um, cater towards different demographics and a victim of being like a Netflix show. But the subtleties are there. It's you can think about it, you can talk about it. It's a great show. Um,
right. Um
I my as I said before, I'm repeating myself. People are going away from the stream, but all my point was I don't think it is like literally anything to do with Kaiji. It's so different. It's so fucking different.
Definitely. Um yeah, I don't know. I guess the only other thing I have to say is in regard to I guess I already touched on it, but Seong Gi-hoon in the final episode, he kind of like a lot of people ask like why didn't he help the families of the girl and his rival like immediately. And the fact that he did so, I think was showed that like he thought that he had defeated the mastermind of the Squid Games and that it was over for good. And so that way he felt like he could then start his life again. And then when he saw like the the guy doing the freaking envelope flipping game in the airport, he realized, oh, the Squid Games aren't over yet, and that's why he turned around from his airplane and made it his mission to stop it again. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah,
something I
yeah.
wanted to say, and I kind of just blurted it out just now. It's
No,
just
it's great. It's great. I just want to say there's another like him getting his hairdo, getting like red and like a girl's hairdo just
like
like
a girl's.
shows you that he's like yeah, it just shows you that he's like completely broken. He he just doesn't work anymore like a human person. Like he's just like,
Uh,
yeah, give me this.
okay,
He's
yeah,
completely broken
yeah. The
after
fact that he
the
picked
game.
such a wild, outlandish color, yeah, it kind of shows that he's not all right in the head. Sure. Um, I would say, like it. I did read something that said like the red represents his rage towards the Squid Game. But you could be right also that he's kind of a broken and damaged individual at the same time.
Well, I think that I'm right because it was a girl with the hairstyle. I mean,
Oh, in the picture that he
it,
chose?
yeah. I mean, if he wanted to
Oh.
show rage, it could have been like something with like more like looking like fire and like sticky, like you know what I mean. But he literally chose like a female hairstyle because he doesn't know. Like he went like look at this. He went into a hairdresser for women. Not like even the name of the shop was something like female whatever, and it's like for girls, for women, and he went there, and
Yeah,
he couldn't even say like just like make it short or whatever. He just okay. He was
it was just like, give
completely
me that. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. Uh,
No, I mean, I want to get a little bit back to Kaiji because we have time. But
yeah,
one thing I want to say about one thing I want to say about Squid Game, even though I like looked down on it when the internet was exploding about it, it's good. Even though it has mass appeal, even
yeah.
though somebody who won't get anything we talked about on this podcast about it, who was just watching it for the, oh dude, like they're like shooting, oh dude, they're like dying, oh, it's so good," even though it's appealing to those kind of people, it's a very good show.
Sure.
It's very,
No, I'm very happy that it has reached the success that it has found because of the themes that it professes. I feel like the themes that it professes need to be talked about a lot more, and the fact that it's opening people's eyes to it, or maybe just even just giving a platform for people to talk about it with, I think is a very good thing. I would say that there's a lot. There's different shows out there that have been doing the same things for years, but um, at least the message is getting out. Um, so that's good. Uh, but yeah, it is kind of a shame that it has become such a meme, and just like even the mere mention of it like causes people to freaking like be like, "Oh, Squid Game! What you like Squid Game?" or something like that.
well, it's the country, like there's always going to be a country like something that's popular. But
Right, of
this
course.
is
It's
something,
because it's so popular that people do that.
yeah, but like at the same time, this is a rare example where it did explode, but it's actually also like really good. It's not like a fucking Titanic kind of like touch on your emotional strings, whatever bullshit, kind of like without any like it does have some layers. You can talk about it. It's still like tickles your brain. It's still good, even though it's very popular.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely good. I still think Kaiji is better.
Yeah, of course, Kaiji
A
is
lot
better.
better. A lot
Yeah,
better.
Kaiji
Um
is fucking.
yeah, and
Um,
I'm beginning to think it might have we maybe we should have just talked about Kaiji today instead of like because this entire podcast just became about Squid Game pretty much.
well,
Um
we got it out of the way. Like
yeah.
it was like a hurdle. If we're gonna talk about Kaiji, we also have to mention this because that's
Yeah,
what's being talked
it
about
like the
now.
comparison is there and it was important that we gave our thoughts on it. Um
Yeah, like we had to like get it out of the way, but um, Kaiji, we didn't even touch upon like 10% until now.
right.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean the reason we did this is because like we figured that like we were gonna have to that we were gonna be talking about Kaiji for a number of episodes, and we may as well just since this is a hot button issue and a lot of people on the internet are talking about this, we might even be a little bit late to the party on this because like people have probably been talking about this for months, and now here we are like in 2022 talking about something that was popular in freaking October of 2021. But it is what it
Well,
is.
before we close up with Game, I just want to say one more thing. I think it's a million times more similar to Liar Game than Kaiji.
Yeah. I would say yeah. It's like Kaiji. It's one part Kaiji, maybe three parts Liar Game, and maybe three parts Battle Royale. Um,
And one part Korean history and
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's definitely very different. But the overall themes very reminiscent at the same time. So
All right.
yeah.
It feels good that we got liar, not Liar's Game. We got Squid Game I can't even talk. Out of the way.
Yeah.
We got Squid Game out of the way. Um, we still have a lot of time. We're gonna talk about Kaiji. I just wanna ask um, the few people who are watching if they wanna say something in the chat. Ask us something we can talk about.
In the meantime, I guess well we kind of already talked about what makes Kaiji such a good hero. But at the same time it's like I don't know. Well, okay. Well,
We
Doriarka
have
says that it was a very good
yeah, we have a
conversation.
comment.
Yeah. I just don't know what else to talk about, really. I feel, honestly, I feel like,
But
uh,
he's right. He's right. He said it made him sick because it became a meme, and
right.
that's same reason why I avoid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's almost like the meme status has made people shy away from it. And it's kind of like, it is a real, like, it has stuff to say. It's not just a freaking meme. It has stuff to say, and it says them if you watch it. And it's more than just freaking a slasher kind of horror thing. There is meat behind it, and there is a commentary to be had. Um,
yeah. Because he's completely right. Like, if you didn't tell me, like, do you want to watch a show so we can talk about it? I wouldn't have watched it just
right.
because of the memes. Honestly, just because of the expo. Like, for me personally, I try to avoid pop culture, and like for me when I go to the internet it's like Marvel versus whatever, and all of these like movies and shows I know I'm gonna hate. And when I saw that the internet is like exploding about Squid Game, I was sure like I'm gonna hate that shit.
Yeah,
But then I
yeah,
watched and I was like, no, it's not. It's actually it does make sense. It's actually not that bad. Like it's okay. Like it's not the best thing ever. It's
right.
not even near to Kaiji,
Yeah,
but it's okay.
it's okay.
And
Yeah, it's
now,
yeah. I had a similar experience. I was like, I saw the entire internet talking about it, and I heard that it was kind of in the same genre as a lot of manga that I'm familiar with. So, I was just like, well, I better watch it, just so I have some context for what everybody's talking about. And I actually, um, I have found in my life that things that are popular for a reason. Maybe it's not the best thing ever, but typically when things do get popular, they there's a reason why they got popular. And I feel like the reason here is because it
do you like
touched so much on
do you like
on like
do you
what
like
people are
the
really feeling. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have to challenge you right now. Do you really like the superhero movies?
Okay, no.
Like
It's not a general, it's not like a freaking like for everything. But at the same time, like there's a reason why you can't deny that there's always a reason why it becomes popular. Things don't just become popular for no
nobody
reason.
can convince me to watch a new Superman movie or a Batman movie, or like nobody, like not even for a podcast. I'm not gonna watch it. Done with Spider-Man. I'm done with the
Okay.
classical
There's a new
comic book
Spider-Man movie
hero.
coming out. We could talk about that next episode.
Oh my god! Like, come on.
I'm
Can
kidding.
you
I'm
let
totally kidding. But
can
yeah,
people
I
let go
understand.
of those?
I understand. It's like I just feel like in this case, like there was something to it, you know. Um, Especially when something captures the entire world by I guess another thing is how popular are we talking? We're not talking like Squid Game is not as on the level of popularity as like a Spider-Man or a Superman movie. That gets popular among the people that are diehard like superhero fans. But I'm talking about like this is a series that has like captured the entire world. Like pretty much everyone on the entire planet can relate to it. And it's the most popular show that Netflix has put out. So you have to think there must be a reason. That's kind of more what I was getting at.
And tying in with that, there's Dr. Goosh who says he's not looking forward because they're gonna ruin it, and I gotta
Mm,
I gotta agree. I think with all the popularity and everything, there's gonna be even more like limits from the studio. They're gonna say like, um, now you have to put in this. This is
mm,
right now. You gotta put in this. Now you gotta put in this. No, no, you can't show that, but you gotta put in this.
right.
I
I
agree with him. I agree with him.
I do want to see how it continues, and I feel like I trust I trust the author enough because I feel like he definitely did have a because if you read like his backstory, this is a series that he was trying to make for like a decade. Like he was continuously pushing it at the studios, and they kept telling him, "No, it's too ridiculous. It's too ridiculous. That would never happen." And then the world became the way it is. The world kind of shifted. Like wealth inequality got to the point where like something like this like they looked at it and they were like, you know what? Actually, this is kind of relatable now, you know. And like it, his vision never changed. His vision for Squid Game never changed. It's the world around him that changed, that made it more viable. Um, so
Okay,
I would I would
let me challenge you. Let me
challenge me.
challenge you.
Okay, challenge me on this too. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you really hard right now. Do you think that Fukumoto changed after the success of Kaiji?
Mm, that's an interesting question. Um, yes, I do. I think that when he was first writing early Akagi and early Kaiji and all that, he was very focused on getting his message out. He was very focused on making an engaging story the way that he wanted. And that's still true now, but I feel like all of the memes and all of the like popularity and all of that stuff has gotten to him. And I feel like now he's kind of almost milking the series a little bit, and he's like stretching them out as long as he can on purpose. Um, I wouldn't say he's changed drastically. If you like, when you asked me that, my reaction was yes, because he definitely has changed somewhat. But if you're asking me like has his core values changed, then of course not. If you're asking me like has his core soul, his unyielding heart, has that changed? Then of course not. No. But has his like attitude towards his works changed? I feel like yes. I feel like he's uh kind of he's kind of like made them more um made them more
Do you
comical and more
do you,
he's stopped
do
taking
you
them as seriously.
do you think he was like pressured by the publisher to like stretch it out as much as he can because of the
Sure, yeah.
sales?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with Akagi. Oh yeah. Yeah, he was definitely pressured to because it was such a monumental thing. Like nobody had ever written a work that took place in one night stretched over like decades of publication. Like that had never been a thing. So they wanted to keep that going as long as they could. Um so
And it ties in with Squid Game again.
okay.
Well, because like the way I see it, and I definitely might be wrong because I'm not the brightest. I'm not the smartest kid in school, whatever. But Squid Game is also like anti-capitalism, but it wove that message very smartly, like inside the show, and feels like you see it like with any like intellectual property. Like it all starts out great, fantastic, firing, and then like capitalism hits, and it's like no, we gotta make as much money of it as possible, and then it's kind
Yeah, yeah, especially with such a big hits show as this. You have to assume that he's gonna like, it's not gonna be his show anymore. It's gonna be, what he thinks the world wants, more like. Um, which I think it already kind of was in some sense. But at least he has that driving motivation of wanting to get a message across. Hopefully, maybe he's just. Well, no, I mean he definitely does. Like that's like his motivation
of.
for writing it in the first place.
I,
But
I respect I respect Fukumoto a lot because even though he agreed to like stretch out the stories with filler and like not filler but like you know what I mean, uh he's still like not changing the story itself,
yeah,
like so he still keeps some kind of like moral ground, and he's like, okay, you know, you want 50 chapters instead of 3 chapters, okay, I'm gonna do it, but the story's gonna stay the same.
yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, he's still his vision is still at the heart of it no matter what. Like, editors come and tell him different things like you can do this but you can't do that or whatever. But at the end of the day, like his vision is still at the core of it. And he's still writing it the way that he wants to. He's still writing what he wants to. So, yeah, I would say that Fukumoto's works are definitely still high quality. They might be a
Of
little
course they
bit,
are.
yeah, they might be a little longer now, but there's still a soul to be had in them. And, not every chapter is going to have some deep philosophical message, but there are plenty of them still that do. Um, and it's, you can still feel that he's putting in his heart and soul into everything he writes. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah,
Yeah,
he's still
sorry to
chugging
put you on the
along.
spot. Sorry to put you on the spot. But I'm gonna do it again. It's by
Okay.
Pushuda.
Body push, double or nothing. All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Uh, being so deeply involved with his work, what's your prediction for Kaiji?
What's my prediction for Kaiji?
Yeah.
Um,
How
okay, so you're saying like as far as like where the story is gonna head?
yeah, like where is it going?
Okay, well this episode is just about part one and Squid Game.
Okay,
So
okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
yeah, so
Let
I don't want to talk about that right now.
yeah,
Plus
that's what.
there might be people listening to this who have only watched Kaiji part one or not and have only seen Squid Game. So I don't know. Like in respect to them, I want to save that for a future episode.
Yeah. It was my mistake. I'm sorry.
No, it's not a mistake. I mean, it
I
is what
just
it
want to
is. Yeah, that's a
bring in
good
some
question.
spice.
It's just that I don't think this is the episode where I should be answering that. Um,
That that's right.
but let's see. Is there anything else we could talk about?
Well, I'm glad we went over Squid Game,
Yeah. Um.
and we kind of until
Uh. What? What'd you say?
pretty much
You kind of cut out there.
well we pretty much covered like the whole part one of Kaiji. Um,
Yeah.
the next time we have the underground part two story, which is my favorite part of Kaiji actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that'll be interesting to get into. Yeah, no more, no more Squid Game. It's all gonna be Kaiji.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Next time we're gonna be talking about Kaiji Part Two and on, and maybe even going back to Part One if there's something we missed. Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
because we have some time. I just want to ask, like, we have like five viewers right now. Um, Guys, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, please write it right now. Otherwise, we're just gonna talk a little bit more about Kaiji and wrap it up and continue it next week.
right. Yeah, this is gonna be probably a 3 or 4 part discussion on Kaiji because I have a lot to say about a certain character that appears in Part Three. Um, so that's gonna take a while to get through.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but for now, uh, it's just about
Okay.
Kaiji.
Within part one,
Yeah.
while we're waiting for somebody to ask us questions, what do you think of Ponegava?
Oh, yeah. I think he's a very good vessel to talk about how the rich and wealthy really think. I think a lot of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is really philosophical and really interesting in Kaiji, and not in Tonegawa, the spin-off comedy gag manga. I'm talking about in Kaiji. Pretty much everything that comes out of his mouth is something that really makes you think, is really reflexive, um, and really is re- really shows what the rich elites of the world how they believe, and really gives you perspective. So I think he's a very good character for that, and also a respectable character. Like you see that he has some humanity in him when he is willing to do the roasting Neil, for example. I do want to see more of him in the series, not in the spinoff. I want to see more of him in Kaiji. Um, and I think he's a really good character. Okay, so let me shoot another question back at you. What do you think of Hyodo?
Oh God! Oh! Do we have? I asked this like the same stupid question last time, but do we have like 50,000 more hours?
50,000 more. Well, sure. We next episode we've got at least
Okay,
two.
yeah, I'm kidding. Kyoto, I love, I love him. I love him
Mm,
so much
I
because
see.
he's so mysterious, and I can see that Fukumoto is like keeping back on him. You know, like he
Right,
just
keeping
showed
him
a
in the
glimpse.
shadows. Yeah, that's
Yeah, he
deliberate
just
for
showed a
sure.
glimpse, and in the short while, like in the short 1 to 3 episodes, we saw him. He's so fucking great because he's just like smiling like and he just like because other characters are like, oh, let us give you like 15 minutes of exposure in their thoughts. No, Hiro is like, hey, this is my company's Tei, fuck you, I'm the best. He's
Right.
so mysterious.
He's
And
very
I
mysterious, and he
just
but the glimpses of insight that we do get from him, like for example, that time that he's walking through the corridor and there's people that have fallen down in the human derby just writhing in pain, and he's like, uh, do you understand why I am allowed to like do all of this, and I'm allowed to like be the king of this world, and I'm allowed to like have all this wealth and riches? Here's why. And he freaking stabs or not stab. He pokes the guy in the knee, in his bad knee, with his cane, and he starts screaming, and he's like, this is why, exactly this is it. And it's because he like not only does he not feel any pain, like even though he's poking him in the knee, like he Hyodo himself does not feel any pain from what he's doing. And at the same time, the person he's poking in the knee is actually happy about it because he told him before that every time he pokes him in the knee, he's going to give him some money. So that's a very small example of like how he's able to get away with it. It's if you take it into a broader sense, it's because he's able to screw over poor people because he doesn't feel anything that they're feeling. Like he just knows that they're working away, slaving their whole lives away for him, and he as they're doing that, he just gives them money, like not even himself, but like through like his company or whatever. He gives them little scraps here and there, and it's kind of a very like chilling and disturbing yet very potent metaphor for how that kind of person is, I would say.
Yeah, I got to say some other things about Hyodo, but before that, I just want to answer some nice messages. First of all, will Mario complete his escape room challenge? Uh,
We'll see.
we're gonna get to that at the part of IG discussion. No spoilers. Um, have you heard about Fukumoto apparently being mean to his assistants most of the time?
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
um I have heard rumors of that, yeah. um he does seem he One thing I will say that Fukumoto has one way in which Fukumoto has changed is because he has become kind of this Endo slash Hyodo slash Washizu type, kind of like I am the boss, I am your master, and you will serve me. That if there's any one thing that I would say has changed about Fukumoto is that he has gone from being a kaiji to more of a Hyodo in his writing career. Like he has gone from being more of a like kind of an underdog doing his best to survive, and now that he's come all this way and he has thousands and millions of adoring fans waiting on his every, he feels like he has to kind of like put his foot down and
Sometimes,
say what
sometimes
he
I
needs to
feel,
do.
sometimes I feel with the sequels and everything, that Fukumoto is just trying to say like, guys, I told my stories. I told
Right.
them, leave me alone.
Right.
Or you
I'm
want
you
to leave
want
me alone?
more, I'm
You
giving
want,
you more. Here's freaking
you want more?
Kaiji drinking with some friends like for 5 chapters straight. It's Kaiji,
Like,
right?
oh,
You like Kaiji.
you want more? Okay, okay. Here is fucking more. Just leave me alone. Uh,
Yeah.
and about the rumors, I'm gonna say the life of a mangaka is fucking hell. Um, the guy who did Naruto,
Mas-
Masashi Kishimoto.
yeah.
Did you know that he got married um during his work with Naruto, and that he was waiting like 20 years to
Right,
get like
for his
his
honeymoon.
honeymoon?
Yeah, he took his
Yeah,
honeymoon like when Naruto ended, like 20 years later or
so,
something.
yeah, it's like the life of a mangaka is fucking hell. They have no vacations. They have to publish it weekly. It's a nightmare of a life. So even if it's true that he was like rude to some assistants, I'm gonna say it's fine. Like
Yeah.
he's just a human being. Like of course he's gonna like explode at some point and be a little bit rude. So I don't think that's
Plus,
such
it's
a.
kind of like he worked that hard for that long, and now he's graduated to the point where he has a bunch of assistants that will do most of his work for him. And so, in some sense, he has earned the right to not he hasn't earned the right to be mean, but he's earned the right to have them do his work for him. And so
Yeah,
he just comes up with the ideas, and maybe he draws the characters, and then they do all the backgrounds, all of that.
I mean, there's like you can't excuse somebody like harassing workers or something.
Of course
It's
not.
just like understandable. Like if it happened, it's understandable. The guy is under a lot of stress. Publishers won't leave him alone. Fans won't leave him alone. Um, I'm just gonna be crazy and bring in Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
because
interested.
as we're talking about artists in Japan and their stress. Um, did you know that the last two episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, they had no budget? Like Gainax had no budget, so they did it like in a weird way, which was still like nowadays at least, it's very much appreciated. Like they did a little bit with almost no budget, but it's still like fine. But
Yeah.
back then, there was such a fan backlash. They harassed their offices. Like the Gainax
Wow.
office was harassed. There were like death threats every single day. And if you watch the end of Evangelion, the movie, there's one part where all of these death threats, emails, and letters are just shown to the audience. Like how fucking crazy fans can be.
Yeah. Yeah, it
It's
is insane. And they're just doing the best that they can, you know? They're just trying to put out what they can with what they got, and yet people are just mad that I guess that they didn't follow the manga. Is that what it was about?
well, Neon Genesis Evangelion was anime before a manga, but the
Oh,
last two
was
episodes,
it? I had no
yeah, it
idea.
was
Oh,
definitely.
okay. Wow.
So,
Hmm.
by the way, for viewers right now, the reason I learned Japanese was actually Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Right. Yeah, because he wanted to understand the ending.
Yeah, the last words of Asuka, Kimachi warui.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like up on it, and fans are fucking crazy, man. It's not easy being a mangaka. It's not easy being an artist, especially in Japan. People are fucking crazy. So if Fukumoto was a little bit rude to his assistants,
Hmm.
I forgive him.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like if they were experiencing constant harassment and stuff, you would think that they would probably just go find someone else. I don't know. There's also a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing. It's really hard to say.